Welcome back to Servant Leadership Library, the podcast where leadership isn't just about the title on your business card, it's about the impact you leave behind. I'm your host, Nicholas Paulukow, CEO of One-to-One Incorporated, and today we're cracking open a chapter every founder, CRO, and revenue leader needs to read, whether they realize it or not. My guest today is Monty Fowler, and if you think executive debt is just another buzzword, buckle up. Monty doesn't just talk about it, he makes it visible, measurable, and most likely solvable. With over 33 years in the trenches of technology sales, strategy, and revenue leadership across SaaS, enterprise software, fintech, telecom, IoT, and beyond, Monty has seen what actually works and what quietly breaks organizations from the inside out. He's a veteran of 8 tech startups and a multi-founder fractional CRO, and a trusted advisor to leadership teams around the globe. But what really sets Monty apart is that he's a servant leader at heart. He builds teams with integrity, designs revenue engines that don't just burn out people, and coaches the next generation of revenue professionals to win the right way by delighting customers and growing healthy businesses. So today we're going to dive into executive debt revenue strategies, leadership accountability, and what it really takes to scale without losing your soul. So grab your notebook. This one is going to be a conversation that might just change how you lead. So Monty, welcome to the podcast. We love that you're here with us today. We appreciate your time. And why don't you kind of give the audience a little bit of an additional intro?
Well, Nick, I don't know how I can follow that one, man. So first of all, thanks for having me. I love
Absolutely.
your podcast. First of all, I love the topic of servant leadership. It's been central to my success and growth as a leader over the years. I just hope I can live up to all the things that you said there. So yeah, as you said, I'm managing partner at my company Aspire 6. We started the company back in 2024. And we've got about 20 people on our staff, and we do, we consider ourselves to be an operator, what we call an operator-friendly consultancy, meaning that none of us are career consultants. There's no McKinsey, Accenture, EY people on our staff. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not who we are. We are a group of operators that has been in the trenches doing the work for years. So we feel like we get a little bit better results. As you said, yeah, I mean, I've spent my entire career in the trenches, selling technology products and services. I started my career back in the mid 90s, early 90s, actually, when I came out of active duty in the Army.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. It was an absolute privilege. But I got an opportunity to get into network engineering. I started as a network engineer. I didn't really know anything. I got some on-the-job training. I read a few books. I got some certifications. I spent the first 5 years of my career in architecture and engineering firms as their director of IT. I built networks and all the stuff. A lot of stuff around 3D modeling and visualization and animation. Wow. And then I had an opportunity to move over to the vendor side, and I started my career there as a solution engineer. Back in those days, we called them system engineers.
Yeah.
And then at one point, we were actually on our way down to Bloomington, Illinois, to go see State Farm. We were about to close at the time what was going to be the largest deal in our company's history. And I had been the SE on the deal, and I was driving back and forth from Chicago to Bloomington 3 or 4 days a week, and that's a 4.5 hour round trip. Just to get the deal done. So we're driving down to get this deal. And this is back in the days when you used to actually like show up and sign the contract and take pictures and shake hands and, do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the back seat. The sales rep's driving. Our VP of sales is in the front seat. And then another rep is in the back with me. And I'm just listening to these 2 other reps talk about how they're going to spend their massive 6-figure commission checks from this deal. But as the SE, I had a different
before it closes.
Yeah. And this one's taking the family to Europe. This one's going to remodel their house. And I'm sitting there going, I know I'm going to get a $10,000 bonus. And I was promised President's Club as an SE if we got this deal, which is great. Okay. We were going to Maui. It was going to be great. But anyway, I was very quiet during this ride. And my VP of sales, he turns around. He's a Texas guy named Steve Connor. And he goes, "Hey, Monty, you're kind of quiet today." And I says, yeah, man. I said, I got to be honest. I'm sick of hearing these two talk about how they're going to spend all their money. And he's like, he pauses for a second and he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, well, hey, buddy, if you don't like the way you're getting paid, why don't you take your skirt off and go into sales? Now, that's back in the day when you could say something like that and not
Right.
have HR on the phone with you 5 minutes later. So that kind of shut me down. You know, we went, did the thing. It was great. A couple weeks later, I call my VP up and I says, hey, that thing you said in the car, were you serious about that? He goes, I can't believe it took you 2 weeks to call me. And I'm like, well, how would that work? So anyway, we worked it out and I ended up going into sales. And that leader, Steve Connor, he took me under his wing. He is a great servant leader, great mentor and coach. And he took me under his wing and he said to me, he sat me down in the conference room when he was in Chicago one day and he says, look, he says, you are the smartest guy I've ever met. Hands down. He goes, any room we walk into, you're the smartest guy in the room. He said, the problem is that you feel the need to let everybody know that you're the smartest guy in the room. He goes, and that one feature of your personality is going to keep you sidelined for decades. And I was like, wow. It's the kind of brutal truth, truth
Right.
with love, right?
Right.
That we need not only as leaders to bestow upon our people that are, on our team, but also as an individual. Those are great things to hear. They're hard to hear in the moment.
Yeah.
But they're great to hear. And I remember sitting in my car that day thinking to myself, when that guy walks in a room, everybody wants to know what Steve is about to say, what Steve wants to do, what the plan is that Steve has, and they all get on board like instantly. I said, I want to be that. So anyway, we started a business relationship. We worked together at that company for about 2 years. And then he called me, and this is when the friendship began. He had left to go to a startup down in Austin. And he called me up and he said, Monty, this is a great company. We got amazing technology, incredible founders. We just got a $2 million seed round. You need to come down here and see what we're doing. And I was like, dude, I'm selling, I'm crushing my number. I'm making more money than I ever thought I would. Not interested, hard pass. He's like, no, seriously, I'm sending you a plane ticket. You got to come down. So I went down. I fell in love with what they were doing. And he's like, look, he goes, you and I can build this thing into something great. Let's do it together. So I did. I went with him. And from that point forward, Steve and I have been kind of joined at the hip. We became best friends. We did a lot of mission. He introduced me to foreign mission work through an organization called Amazon Outreach. And he literally changed the trajectory of my life with that one comment. And as a result of the relationship with Steve, I got to see what servant leadership looks like on the daily, up close and personal. I got to see what a man who, is a bold Christian. I got to see him living his faith life and his home life and his work life fully integrated without any gaps, without any, he's this way at work, he's this way at home. Because we became close friends, I'm like part of his family and I know his kids. I watched his kids grow up and I got to watch this guy who's about 8 years older than me raise his kids, be a husband, be a leader, go through all the life stuff. And it was such a blessing because when you've got somebody like that who's a few steps ahead of you on life's journey and you can kind of see how they're reacting to this stuff, it just makes
it's great to have such mentors are key, right? Like,
man,
I learned that the hard way, right? I thought I could do everything on my own. And then the day that I was hit hard with have a mentor. They've been there, done that. They can guide you through this. And it's a humbling experience.
Yeah. So anyway, Steve taught me the value of mentorship and paying it forward. And, I've spent the last 10 years of my career and now that I'm kind of on the back nine of my career, I try to spend as much time as I can coaching and mentoring people.
Oh, that's awesome.
For free, for pay. It doesn't matter. It's like, hey, if somebody needs help. I just had a young SDR that was at my last company. He had worked for me for a period of time and we've stayed in touch. And every 4 or 5 months, he'll call me up and he'll just be like, hey, here's what's going on in my life. Here's what's going on with my career. Any advice kind of thing. And I just love that. It's like when your kids call you,
awesome.
When your adult kids call you and you're like, hey, Dad, you got a few minutes? I just need some advice.
Yeah.
That's the best phone call to get, man.
Now your mentor, right? You did like 8 startups. Have you and him followed that journey completely together the whole time?
So Steve and I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now he's involved in this. So he was involved in 6 of the
Wow.
8 startups that I did. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And sometimes he would bring me in, sometimes I would bring him in. And as often happens as you get later on in your career, it's like the student became the master in some ways, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I kind of like skated a little bit further than him in some areas of my career. And so I was able to bring him opportunities, kind of when he really needed it. And it's just been a great relationship and
Oh, that's wonderful. And
a
I mean,
valued friendship.
what would you say like is kind of early lessons that kind of shaped you two together? I mean, you did a lot of
Mm.
startups. So like what were kind of lessons that you learned through them? I'm sure there was a lot.
So Steve and I have a very interesting dynamic, and it's a dynamic that I've seen play out between founders and co-founders over the
Ah,
decades.
okay.
It's the idea guy and the doer, right?
The implementer.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so our dynamic for our whole time together has been Steve's the big idea guy, and I'm the one that can turn it into reality.
Ah, that's a
Um,
special role.
Boy, I'll tell you, and it's a role that I'm very comfortable with. I don't need to be the guy on stage. I don't need to be the guy at the front of the room, kind of thing. I'm way happier sitting in the background, making sure the trains are running on time and
Yeah.
building stuff and figuring out what we've got to do next and all of that. Which is why strategy has really become the centerpiece of my career capabilities in this last, I'd say, 7 years.
That's
So,
that's am- I think it's amazing though because when you find those synergies of the two, that's such a unique thing that you've been blessed to have.
oh yeah,
When you can get so far as an individual, as a creative, visionary person, but when you hit a certain dollar amount, you need that role that you played to successfully navigate that. I mean,
absolutely.
do you see that frequently? Because you talk about like revenue problems and sales problems. Tell us a little bit about that. Where do you see that people realize that they have these problems? Is it a certain stage of their business? Is it a certain dollar amount? You
I
know,
think I think every stage, and let's just kind of keep the talk confined to the tech sector because that's what I'm
yeah,
familiar with,
absolutely.
and especially VC funded tech sector
Okay.
stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So when you look at the life cycle of a VC funded company, there are unique challenges that can kill a company at every stage, right? When you're in the pre-seed stage, you can find out that what you're trying to build just isn't possible or the market doesn't
Right.
want it or whatever. When you've got your seed money and now you're starting to talk to actual customers and get people to sign up, you can find out that your product sucks. and, and there's a lot of stuff to fix before you're really commercially viable. When you get to Series A, now the game is real, right? Because you've
Yep.
taken real money and there's an expectation and a timeline. You're on a shot clock now to get to that
Right.
next, to the next, to the next. So at every stage, there are things that can pick you off base. And that unless you've gone through the drill before, it's kind of like going on a journey out in the woods. Unless you've been up that trail before, you don't know what awaits you around the bend,
That's right.
or what dangers there might be or where the quicksand is and whatnot. And that's why in my experience, it has been, especially as I've gotten older and more experienced in my career, and I find myself in another startup and another startup where the people are younger and younger and younger, and I'm relatively older and older and older. I find that the experiences and all the stuff that I've gone through in the past, individually and with teams, I see it play out again and again and again. So I can pattern match very quickly when I walk into an organization. I can sit in one team meeting and tell you, who's got the toxic mindsets, who's really driving the conversation, who's the actual decider, not the one with the title, but the one that actually wins the day in a lot of
Right.
these conversations. And, you know, that has served me well because I can walk into any organization, either as an employee or as a consultant, and very quickly understand, because the health check of the business is easy. Every business is wired really well now, and you got great data and dashboards and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So seeing the numbers is easy, but it's the interpersonal relationships and the cultural dynamics are what make companies fail or succeed. And they're the one thing, I've preached this for
Well
years.
said.
Culture is the one aspect of your business that your competitors cannot steal or replicate. Because even if they stole all of your employees, the culture would be different because they're in a different context, in a different situation with different people around them.
Right.
So culture, unfortunately, doesn't get the airtime that it really deserves. And I feel bad for a lot of our HR and talent professionals out there because they understand this in their core of their being.
Right.
And they, unfortunately, at least most of the companies that I've worked in, they just don't have the juice to really shape and protect and build the culture intentionally. Really, every company that I've been in that's had a great culture, it was really just happenstance that the right people happen to come together and then it all kind of worked. And it helps if you've got a founder that's culturally oriented and they understand the importance of it, right? I've worked for some
it's interesting
not
to
great
say kind of in the
too.
culture, right? Like the everybody has one. It doesn't mean that they're good. It's a good one, right?
Absolutely.
It's fascinating that you say that. And I think one other interesting point that you meant just brought flashbacks back to my first corporate job in tech. You had said about experience, right? And I came and I was a hot shot and I could do this job and I replaced this tenured person and I was just going. And I went to my boss and I'm like, man, like, what's the problem here? Like, I'm moving and shaking. And he goes, you are not worth anything to me till you have experience. And I was like, oh man. I mean, it drove me, right? But that was the first like step down, right? Like, you might be in that seat, but you're not valuable to me till you have the experience. And I think those are valuable lessons that you're bringing up.
I see companies every day, especially Series A or seed stage companies, where you just go on LinkedIn, you'll find hundreds of these job listings where they're looking for a founding account executive, right? Or founding sales rep. And you know what that means, right? You're going to do the work of a VP of sales, meaning you're going to build the whole go-to-market program and you're going to carry a quota. And boy, you better hit your number because the whole company literally just
selling in my world.
Yeah. And it just, I don't want to say it doesn't work ever. It does work sometimes because I've been that guy a couple of times and I just figured it out. But man, that's a risky move for a startup. You know what I mean?
We call that the unicorn. There's no real true unicorns.
There really aren't because unless you've been down the trail before and you know what's around the bend, everything that happens is going to be the first time you're seeing it.
That's right.
Now, I think today as we sit here, we have much better tools and capabilities as individuals to fake it till we make it, let's just say.
Right.
I mean, ChatGPT and Claude and all these things really help us look a whole lot smarter than we really are. But when it comes to, it's not just knowing what to do, it's actually doing the stuff and doing it consistently, doing it with rigor and intentionality. And unless you've got a uniquely disciplined person, that's a really, really tough thing to do.
For our audience that may not know these terms, when you use the word VC, give the explanation of like VC compared to maybe an entrepreneurial, startup like private, so they understand where you're coming from.
So when you start a company, you've got kind of three choices for funding, right? For the money to start the business. It either comes out of your own pocket, that's called self-funded or bootstrapped. You go out and you get other people's money, and that's in the form of anything from friends and family to, Kickstarter, all the way to venture capital. Venture capital is institutional money. It's a group of people that get together, they pool their money, they give it to a company, a venture capital firm, and they act like an investment broker almost. And they go and they scan the market and they look for interesting opportunities. And when they see one, they put the money in the pot to help grow a company. And they get a piece of the action. They get a piece of equity, usually a pretty sizable chunk of the company, sometimes over 50%. And then if you're a VC funded company, you will very typically go through multiple rounds of funding. So they don't just give you a giant pile of money up front. They dole it out to you in what they call Series A, Series B, Series C. And with every one of those investment moments, there are new expectations that are placed upon the company and the leadership team. And if you don't meet those expectations, bad things happen. Money goes away, company fails, executives get fired. I've even worked in a business, a startup, where one of the co-founders was actually fired. And I didn't know that was a thing until it happened in front of me. And I was like, wow. and that founder didn't know it was a thing until it happened to him. But
They want
Turns
their
out it
money
is a
back.
thing. And then there's a third way that you can get companies funded. That's, again, other people's money. It's called private equity. And private equity is they invest in different types of companies. Private equity will typically only invest in companies who are already a going concern. They're profitable. They've been in business for years. They're stable. They're, growing. And what private equity's mission is a little bit different. Venture capital is looking for those. That's gambling in my book. Okay. Venture capital is like going to Vegas and playing roulette and putting, $50,000 on red and black and this and that. And you're hoping that you've made enough right bets where even if 90% of the bets turn bad, these 10% are going to carry the day and make us profitable. Private equity is a different matter. Private equity, they're more like bankers, right? And a lot of times they're looking for companies that are stable and solid and leaders in a particular industry. And then they buy that company and then they start buying their competitors and they roll them up into one thing. And if you've been in technology, you're very familiar with this. You've seen this many, many times. So, but we're even seeing it happen today. In fact, one of the biggest areas for private equity investment right now is in home services companies all over the United States. HVAC, electrical, plumbing contractors.
Yep.
Because those are
Even
cash cow
maintenance,
businesses.
It's, people doing siding and downspouts and all that kind of stuff.
All that. Yeah. I came across a company the other day that's it's about to be acquired by a private equity firm. They do grease services for restaurants. So, the deep fryers, the oil that goes in the deep fryers.
Yep.
They come in and they suck it out and they filter it and they put the new stuff in and they maintain your fryers and all that. It's a $15 million company and they've got like 30 employees, dude.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Guys, he's like, yeah, I started this 5 years ago. He goes, dude, it's like printing money. Holy cow.
Well, so, you talked about all the different types of businesses, right? And as a leader, do you find that leading as a leader in each of those organizations is different? If it is, what is each person, getting themselves into, right? Right. Like you mentioned timing, right? Because some of these are investments for people. So they have a shorter time frame than maybe a privately held organization.
Yeah. Yeah. So anytime you take other people's money, whether it's a bank or private investors or institutional investors, there's an expectation of return, right? They're not giving you the money so that they can lose it. They want to make more on that money. And so when you take other people's money, the thing that was yours yesterday is now not yours anymore. It's partially yours. Or if in the case of private equity, it's theirs now and you're just still sitting in the seat running it. Right. Yeah. And now you got a salary and your big payout is tied to whether this thing survives for another 2 to 5 years, while they lock you up.
Yep.
So I would say, is it different? Yeah. I mean, every company is unique, right? They're all snowflakes, but the way you lead people, because people are all the same when you look at it writ large, right? There are everybody has the same motivations, the same fears, the same hopes, the same dreams when you look at a population of people, whether it's your company or the country. And as a leader, you have to figure out for your mission, what is the goal we're trying to achieve. You need to look at the goal and you need to look at the people that you've got, and you need to very quickly figure out who is orientated and personality wise is just a doer. I can just give them a task and they're going to go off and do it. And I don't have to worry about it. I know it's going to get done right. It's going to get done high quality. I don't have to chase them. Identifying that group of people is really important because those are the people that you can rely on every day for anything. Then there's the next group of people, and I call them the worker bees. And let me just be really clear. I love honey and worker bees are really, really important. Okay. So it's not a pejorative thing when I say worker bee. These are the people that show up, do the job that's expected of them, but they're not thinking about the job on the ride home. They're not thinking about it while they're watching TV or playing with their kids. They shut it off and they turn it back on again at 8 or 9 when they come in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then there's the third tier, and these are what I call the developers, the people that you need to develop. There's some aspect of their personality, either professional or personal, that is currently holding them back that you can identify and you can put a finger on, right? And those people are worth investing in. They're worth bringing along for a period of time. Now, not everybody wants to grow. And I'm sure you've come across people who are just super happy to be this and that's all they want to be. And okay, great. I have a son who has that personality trait where he's got a good, stable, you know, hands-on job. He loves it. And that's all that's because his aspirations don't lie in the size of the paycheck that he gets. He's more about what he does outside of work. Right.
Yes.
And then you've got the bottom tier of people, which are the people that, for the context of your company and the job that you've hired them to do, can't perform. And those are the people, unfortunately, that get a lot of our attention, and we burn most of our calories on. Yeah. And that's unfortunate because and that's one of the areas that I think systemically we get wrong in leadership in the American companies, is we spend way too much time paying attention to the underperformers, and we don't spend enough time feeding that middle band, which is there are people in that middle band who could be top performers. They just have never been motivated properly. Maybe they haven't been given opportunities that kind of light the spark in their mind. They haven't had good coaching. They don't have a mentor. They haven't been given a path. Because that's the other thing I see too. I walk into a lot of companies and it's like, can I see your progression path for all your roles? And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, okay, so you've got SDRs and sales reps and customer success and SEs and all this stuff. What's the career progression path?
Right. It's kind of like put your finger.
Yeah. It's like, well, when we see somebody who's good, you know, we'll promote them. And it's like, no, you know. So, you know, there's a lot. Look, running a business is hard. Let's just say it out loud. Running a business is hard. And I do not recommend it for most people. I really don't. I think entrepreneurs are a unique personality type. And you can take a lot of different ingredients and build an entrepreneur from it, right? It's like making curry. You can make curry from a lot of different ingredients, right? And everybody's kind of got their own spin on it, but it's still curry, right?
Yep.
And that's what we should be striving for with our people, is figuring out which ones can become the future leaders, can become the A players that can be great player coaches for the rest of the team. And unfortunately, because of all the nonsense that we deal with in business, especially in the broader market and all the uncertainty and fear and everything that's happening, we just don't spend the time on that stuff because we feel like we're always running around with a fire extinguisher. You know?
And we lose those people that could be quite successful in the business because they're ignored, right? They're 100%. Not ignored intentionally, but yeah. I mean, you're reminding me of a concept called stratum, which is like, you know, the levels of how far someone can think out. Right. Mm-hmm. Like when you're explaining that, right? Like you have ones that can think that day, and then you have, which is a majority potentially, or maybe that week. Yeah. And then you have, you know, smaller few that can think out a quarter or even a year or a couple weeks, which is fascinating, right? There is less of those people, which requires a lot of training and a lot of coaching and mentoring, which is hard too, right? If you're not naturally focused,
I agree,
you know,
but
have that skilled.
I tell leaders, you know, when you look around your executive team, and in smaller companies, you know, a Series A company, there might only be 5, 6, 7 senior leaders in the business. Yep. And I tell them, I said, look around the room, and you know, you need to have one of each of these personality types at the table. You need to have a visionary, and many times that's the founder or the co-founder or one of the founders. So you need to have a visionary, somebody who's setting the vision. What are we doing? What's our mission? All of that, and they need to, more importantly, to be an actual visionary, you not only have to be able to think this stuff up, but you have to be able to communicate it effectively to everybody around.
And the time to do it, right?
And the time to do it, exactly.
I see so many visionaries get pulled into actually having to do the do.
And that's not what they're gifted at typically,
right?
They're thinkers, not doers, as we've established. The other personality type that you absolutely must have, and unfortunately, our HR systems and our hiring and our performance management systems tend to bias against this personality type. And that's the naysayer, the what if person, the person who, when you tell them, hey, we're going to do a company outing, we're going to go here, they don't get excited. They think of all the 14 different ways that thing can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
I am that personality type. Okay. I grew up in a very large Italian family where this was this is burned into our DNA, man. It's like, before you can consider the fun that you might have, you got to consider the 18 things that could possibly go wrong. Like when we plan a vacation, I'm the guy that's looking at, okay, so we're going to get to Rome at this time. And then, we've got to get on a train to go down to Positano. But, you know, we're getting in here and it's only 40 minutes. There's no way we're going to get from here to the train station, figure out what we got to do. You know? So what are we going to, and it drives my wife crazy, but I'll tell you, whenever we go on vacation, everything goes like clockwork. And I have a contingency plan when something goes sideways.
I have an Italian wife, and I call it we use a system called Culture Index, high D, right? High detail, right? And same thing, right? This could happen. Well, I'm a realist, and I know, but like, can't we sometimes just not be realists? She goes, hey, listen, I got to tell her where the problems are. I'm not saying they're negative, but we just got to identify the problems quickly.
Well, that's my wife. She's like, can't we just see what happens? I'm like, no, we can't. We cannot do that. That's crazy. Why would we do that? Right. Like, so we're going to be standing in the middle of Rome, just like, I don't know what to do now, Anyway, you need that person at the table. And then lastly, you need somebody who is what I call the peacemaker. This is the person who feels tension in the room and can diffuse it. Because I've seen, unfortunately, especially in young startups where there's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of gray and there's a lot of momentum to get it right the first time. Yes. I see people, I've been in the room for literal, like throwing stuff at one another, screaming at the top of their lungs, slamming stuff on the table, like really childish behavior. But it comes from a good place. It's like, we're trying to solve this problem. We want to get it right. And I don't agree with you in this and that. So having somebody in the room who can go, okay, guys, hang on. I hear what you're saying. Let's write it on the whiteboard. What's good about what you're saying? And let's find, a common ground.
Would you consider them also like the cheerleader?
Not really. No, they're not the cheerleader. The visionary tends to be the cheerleader in my experience, or HR.
HR, good point. Valid point. There, one associate of mine has grown a very large business, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And he looked at me the one day and he goes, the biggest role in the company is the cheerleader. And I'm like, what's the cheerleader? He goes, when I was small, it was my executive admin. He goes, as an entrepreneur, I'm not always the cheerleader. I'm the driver sometimes. Let's get it done. Let's do this. This is an idea. And I was very reflective as you went through kind of astutely the people that need to be in the room. I really never thought about it that way. And he said the same thing. Now his is HR, but it's the one that rallies the troops, right? Yes. Like after the visionary is given the rally cry, they go and continue to sell the message. And I was like, wow, I really never simplified it to that. And there's a lot of value to that.
As I've talked about in my book on executive debt, I talk about toxic mindsets that kill companies. And I also talk about the fact that you need to have, again, the right people in the room and the right players at the table. Because if you have a gap in your leadership team, something is going to go off the rails. Right. It's just the momentum of a business that'll do that. It's like a train, right? If there's a problem in the train, something bad's going to happen at some point. And
let's dive into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about executive debt, the book. What led you to write that? Kind of like even define for us. I know, sure. What is executive debt?
Yeah, so executive debt, as the title says, it's the long-term cost of short-term decisions. And the way I explain it to people is real simple. So if you work in tech, you already know what technical debt is, right?
That's right.
Yep. Technical debt is the price we pay ultimately for all of the shortcuts that we took along the way, right? So when you're a software firm and you're developing a new product, right? You make compromises in the early stage of that development for speed, for efficiency, for just getting it out the door. Sometimes you can't afford a particular library or API connection or something. Right. So you find a way around it. You use open source stuff, whatever. Well, there always comes a day where you've got to pay the piper, right? And it usually manifests as, and we can't scale because we didn't build it to scale to a certain point, or we used a piece of open source code or service and now we're going for our Series A and the VC is telling us, nope, can't have any open source code in your code base. Get rid of it. That's technical debt. Technical debt is not upgrading the CRM system, right? For all the people that are still running Microsoft Dynamics, I just feel so bad for you because your company hates you. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Microsoft. Sorry, Satya. But technical debt, people understand. It's like I'm making a conscious choice that I know I'm going to do something today that I'm probably going to really regret tomorrow, but I really don't have a choice. Executive debt is
might have not
exactly
seen
the
that
same.
leading indicator. You made
You
kind of
never
a
saw the
narrow
lead.
decision.
No.
Got it. Okay.
You have a vague sense because maybe you've done it before that this is I'm gonna regret this at some point, but right now we've got to do it, right?
Got it.
Executive debt is the same thing. In fact, executive debt is the superset of which technical debt is really just a feature, right?
Mm.
Executive debt comes from leaders who have great ideas, great strategic plans, and they lack the ability to effectively communicate that strategy to the people that actually have to get the strategy done, right?
Okay.
And another feature of it is they get short-term memory, right? Q1, this is our strategy. Then Q2 comes around. That strategy isn't working. New strategy, Q2. And we get to Q4. Those two strategies didn't work. Next year, we're really getting serious and we're going to do this strategy. And you end up whiplashing your entire team because what you forget as a senior leader is that all of that cool stuff you wrote on the whiteboard in the conference room has to get operationalized into workflows, processes, people, teams, systems, tools, data flows, all of it. And when we don't communicate the strategy properly, when we don't align the team to what our goals actually are, and we just expect, okay, well, you guys are going to interpret all this stuff and you're going to go do it. That's where we get misaligned and we end up failing. So the book talks about 4 kinds of executive debt. This is the 4 areas of the business where it tends to accumulate and show up where you can see it.
Okay.
So the first is strategic debt. And that's, this is the impacts of the decisions undermining the company's long-term strategy, right? So imagine you decide, hey, we're doing really well with SMB. It's time for us to tackle the enterprise.
Okay.
So we're going to go up market, right?
Yep.
Or, hey, you know what? We're doing really good in North America. It's time to expand to the EU. And I've been in the room for that discussion multiple times. And I've done it well a couple of times, and I was involved in a project where we did it really badly one time. And I'll tell you, when you make decisions like that, I call them one-way door decisions. They're the decisions that when you make them, they're really, really hard to unwind. There's going to be cost associated with them. Yeah, and there's going to be reputational or brand damage associated with undoing it, right? So strategic debt tends to be, I've got a big idea and I fail to communicate how we're going to get it done, and therefore it just never materializes, or it materializes in a way that's a million miles from what we intended.
Right.
That tends to manifest itself then in operational debt. So we've set this big strategy. We think we've communicated it well. We've hired people. We're doing all the stuff. But now the team has to operationalize that in our workflows and our systems and yada, yada.
Yep.
And again, unless the leaders of those teams are very clear on what the strategy is and what the goals are, they're not going to lead their teams properly, right? That operational debt, once it calcifies in an organization, right? Imagine these are workflows. I'm sure you've been in companies where you see a workflow and you're like, why are we still doing that? We have a system that does that for us now. Or why are you still maintaining that dashboard? We've got an automated report over here, right? They get lost in the shuffle and things keep happening that don't need to happen anymore. So that operational,
sometimes the muscle and feel of the leader. They don't know how to delegate, so they try to do it all on their own, which just stalls the entire vision.
Oh, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing. So then once you've got operational debt kind of calcifying inside your organization, that manifests in 2 other types of debt.
Okay. Culture
debt, right? So imagine now you've got a bunch of people who are doing work that they don't really understand. They don't know how it connects to the broader goals. It's the script is always changing. It's maddening, right? And then, quarter after quarter, we're missing. I'm seeing people get fired, let go, new people coming in, and we're still missing. What is going on? That culture, then that starts to erode your culture. And now you've got a talent problem because as culture goes, so go your people.
Yep.
And once the culture is broken, your A players are not long for this world. They're going to leave the minute they've got an opportunity.
Right.
And more importantly, once your A players check out, once they've made the intellectual decision that this is not the place for me, they stop doing all the things that make them A players, namely coaching and mentoring their peers. They stop being a great team player and they start internalizing, getting ready for their next job,
Mm.
right? So once you've racked up, strategic, operational, cultural, and then talent debt, you're in a bad place. And unfortunately, as a consultant, most of the companies that I walk into have 3 or 4 significant
Really?
challenges in these areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when you, right, when you see the businesses that you're in and say it's private equity and they're
Yeah.
infusing and they want to get this return in a short amount of time, how often do you see the leaders in those positions cycle through that process, right? Whereas they might have been great, it exponentially grew and it grew out of their ability to, coach and train themselves. How often do you see that? And is that
Yeah.
part of what you would consider this debt as well?
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the things that private equity is better at uh, is a function than, I say, VCs, because they pay more attention
Okay.
to it, and
Okay.
that is uh, determining who should be on the bus once ownership of the bus changes,
Mm,
right? So
got
when
it.
a PE firm is coming in and they're doing their due diligence, they do very detailed interviews, not only with the leadership team, but with the front line, the next line below them, and then the front line leaders,
Mhm.
to figure out who's toxic, who should be here, who's really effective, and whatnot. And they will clean house before they make the investment, or shortly
Wow.
after they make the investment.
Okay. Okay.
So private equity tends to be a little bit better about that. I don't see as many toxic leaders on the other side of a private equity transaction as I do
Got it.
in bootstrapped companies. Because bootstrapped
Got it.
companies, it's like, hey, I'm the guy, like it or lump it, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, I could
so
see that cycle happen over and over, right? Like you make a shift because a leader maybe couldn't made it to that level, which then changes culture, changes talent, and all of that. I mean, am I incorrect there? Like it almost could become a vicious cycle
it
relevant to
can.
how often that happens.
So here's a private equity experience I had. It was a small manufacturing company down in Lenexa, Kansas. They made 2 products out of the same raw material. They made net
Ah,
wrap for agriculture, right? So like
okay.
you see the big hay bales out in the field.
Yeah.
They
Yeah, yeah,
made
yeah.
the plastic net wrap that goes around that. And then they
Ah,
also made um, an additive for concrete mixing, that it's like plastic fibers that go into the concrete that help
really?
strengthen it without rebar, right? Same raw material, these little plastic pellets, and they make 2 completely different products for 2 completely different industries. Anyway, I was brought in by the private equity firm to do an audit of the company, to just see. They were about to make another significant investment, and they're like, "Hey, I need to." So I was the guy going in, figuring out who's good, who should stay, who should go, and
Ah,
where are the
okay.
real structural problems in the company. And I came back and I was like, "Hey, this company is really well run. You know, financials were decent. They were competitive and at the top of their industry in both of the places they played. They had some structural stuff that we needed to fix and some basic blocking and tackling that they weren't doing. But when it came to the general manager, the plant manager of the big plant, every single person that I interviewed started the conversation with, "You've got to get rid of him. He is the
Really?
worst." And I mean, sexual harassment,
Oh,
berating
wow.
employees, using horrible language toward female employees, just some of the worst stuff I've ever heard from a team of people. And so when I submitted my report to the private equity firm, I'm sitting around the table with all the general partners of the private equity firm. And this was a pretty substantial firm. And they were contemplating a significant investment in this company because they really saw an opportunity to grow. And
Right.
I started my conversation with, I said, "Close your checkbook." And they're like, "What?" I said, "You need to close that checkbook and keep it." I said, "Just keep it in the drawer until you fire so and so." They're like, "What's going on?"
Mhm.
So I laid out my report, and they were just like, "Oh my God." Literally that afternoon, that guy was gone.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I got calls from 4 or 5 of the people working there. Like 3 of them were like office workers, just, and one lady out in the plant. They were like weeping. They were so thankful that, because they knew.
Really?
Yeah. And because I told they when the first person that was like, "Can I really confide in you?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And they're like, "Who's going to hear about what I'm about to tell you?" I said, "Well, if it's bad enough, the people that own this company are going to hear." And like, okay. So I earned their trust, and then I followed through, right? And I,
Wow.
I let it be known that this person, and I even told the private equity firm, I said, I can't spend another day at that company if he's still there. And I needed to
Oh,
go back and implement, all the stuff we were going to do. And they were like, yeah, he's gone.
wow.
Yeah.
Now,
But
we talk about leadership, right?
mm,
As you've worked in so many of these organizations, I mean, and those that are trying to become a leader, I mean, what do you think that it like, or what would you say the top three things are of like a really great leader?
oh, that's easy. First of all, you got to know why you're doing it. What's your why?
Ah,
I'll steal a little Simon Sinek juice here.
yeah, right,
You got to know your why. If you're just there for a paycheck or to feed your ego, or to play golf 3 days a week, that's not the right DNA, right?
mm,
So you got to know what your why is, and your why needs to be bigger than your own self-serving needs. It has to be
mm,
for a higher purpose, right? And that could
yeah,
just be, hey, I want to take great care of my family. That's a great higher
right,
purpose, right?
absolutely,
Um, Second thing you need to have is emotional intelligence. And I'll just say it out loud, and maybe you'll bleep this, but you can't be an asshole. You
right,
just can't. You
right,
can't in business today. And I'll tell you why. One, it never really worked,
right.
right? But there
It's
were
fear-based,
moments that, yeah, it's fear-based, but there was a lot of time throughout American business where that was a viable strategy or tactic for a leader, because the
right,
people didn't have a voice. People didn't have a
right,
choice. No voice, no choice. Today, we've got two generations in the workforce who just literally will not countenance bad behavior from leaders. They won't.
that's right,
They'll
that's
just
right,
leave. They will just leave. And more importantly, they will tell everybody why they left,
right,
and they will ruin your brand to the extent that they can.
mm,
So you've got to be, I don't want to say you got to be a good person, but you've got to be the kind of person who uh, can see your shortcomings and work on them. And
okay,
then lastly, I think you have to be a person of high integrity. I know you have to be a person of high integrity. And when I say integrity, I mean it in the biblical sense, meaning I'm not a double-minded person. I am the
right,
same at work as I am at home, as I am at
right.
church, as I am out on the golf course with my buddies, as I am alone when my wife isn't watching.
Just authentic. Yeah,
Authentic, purpose-driven, honest, reliable, right? And just doing things, at least striving to do things the right way. And when you fail, you're a big enough person to say, hey, you know what? I made a grievous error here, and and I'm going to make it right. Right.
mm,
When I see leaders that demonstrate those traits, I know that's somebody I can work with,
mm,
and that's somebody who can get over whatever the challenge of the moment is. Right.
mm,
Because they're properly oriented in the
right.
right kind of spirit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those people are few and far between, to be honest.
Mm,
I've encountered few of them along my journey.
mm,
Some will have one or two of those ingredients, but then there's a third ingredient that just ruins it all.
mm.
You know,
And when you find them, you hold on to them.
let me tell you, man, that's one of the most wonderful things. When I look back on my career, one of the things I'm most proud of or blessed by is the people that I have collected in my circle of trust over the years.
Right.
These are the people that I can pick up the phone and call, and they will always take my call. I can reach out to them by email, ask them any question. It's like no time has passed when we get together and
Right.
stuff. And they open doors for you. I open doors for them. We create
Right.
opportunities for one another. And that is the most, like people say, your network is your net worth.
Right. Well, it's
So
that go-giver mentality, right? Like we're here to,
absolutely.
the greater good is bigger than my individual success, right? By helping each other out.
Well, and that's why, I preach servant leadership. I have for decades now, ever since I read, Robert Greenleaf's book. And then I went through several rounds of training with Ken Blanchard's company.
Ah, yes.
And so it's in me now, and then I'm a person of faith too. So, I
Absolutely.
understand when I look at how Christ led, it's like,
Absolutely.
it's the inverted pyramid, right?
That's right.
Serve everyone.
Talk
So when I
talk about
see a
the
leader,
best leadership book that you can read, right?
absolutely, the Bible is absolutely the best. It's the best book,
Absolutely.
period, you can read, because it
That's
is,
right.
so one thing your listeners might not know is my wife and I were also biblical counselors. We
Oh,
run a
wow.
ministry
Okay.
where we're one of the few in the country, husband and wife certified biblical counselor teams that work with
Wow.
couples. So when couples
Wow.
come to us, there's a husband and wife sitting across from a husband and wife. Anyway,
I love it.
Because of that, I have, I have a counselor's brain sometimes. So, you know, that has really helped me in my career too, especially over the last few years. And it helps me talk to leaders and founders in a way that sometimes they're not comfortable with.
Right.
Because I know I've got a leader where I want them when I make them cry. when, when I can get them to cry, it's like, okay, I hit a nerve, and
it's the reset.
It's the reset, because almost everybody that I've talked to over the years has some facet of their dynamic that they're not proud of, and they know they need to work on. Right. And as people, that's the best we can do.
There's not as many people to be able to talk to about those things.
When and for any entrepreneurs out there, bravo. I know the weight that you carry. I've been a founder of 3 companies, and had to write the checks and all that stuff. And I know what the weight of other people's families relying on you feels like. Right. And that is a great privilege, and it is a massive responsibility. And to the extent you're able, you owe it to them to try to become the best leader you can be. And that means, if you're a person of faith, you need to get prayed up before you go into every big decision, every big meeting. I would say before you start your day, you need to have good people around you that don't work for you, that can speak into your life, a mentor, a coach, a peer that you trust, that is aligned to your worldview, who's just going to speak truth to you in love, right? That's the greatest asset that you can have. Sometimes it's your spouse. Sometimes it's your business partner, but it should be somebody in your life, will say, why did you do that? What were you thinking?
Right. Help me I had a mentor that I still talk to, a great friend. The one day he looked at me, I've started quite a few companies, and he said, hey, you're building this one, but would you go and work there? And I paused, and I was like, huh.
Man, that's a great question.
Would
you work for you?
Right. Like he was just like, listen, I mean, your mind and what you're thinking and how large and how quick you want to go, but would you work there right now at the size it is? And I'm like, whoa, that stopped me. I mean, that was a reset moment of like, okay, recheck, but you're right, man. When you have a great mentor that just can do a zinger like that, it just provides so much value.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, Monty, as you talk about that, and as we start to kind of wind down for today, like founders, you were talking about founders, right? And a lot of them, and a lot of us feel stuck sometimes, right? They might not have a partner, right? And you were going through some advice there, but like as a founder who's like just stuck, is it like read your book and it'll help you get unstuck? What advice would you have?
So if you're a founder that's stuck, you need a different perspective. You need another set of eyes and another brain to look at what you're doing, the results you've gotten, kind of what your plan is going forward, who is familiar with your industry, is familiar with the market segment or segments that you sell into, ideally is familiar with whatever your service or product is, deeply in the market, and have them strategize with you, have them, more importantly, analyze your thought processes around why you're choosing this versus that, right? Because a lot of times when I get with founders and they show me a strategy that they laid out, I'm like, well, why did you land on that as the strategy?
Right.
And they just look at you like they don't even remember the why, right? And what I found, because I've been in the room, a lot of times I find out that when we make strategic decisions, 80 or 90% of the decision is already made before we all get in the room.
Right.
Because one person, many times the CEO, is coming to the table with in their mind what's a fully baked plan. And now the conversations around how do we make this plan happen? Nobody's asking the question, is that the right plan? What information did you use to build that plan?
Right.
What data were you looking at? Did you go back and look at the output of our previous decisions in this category? I mean, let's be honest. We make a lot of the same decisions on a rinse and repeat cycle, right? I mean, you think about strategic planning. It's a Q4 exercise in every company. We're going to set our sales goals, our hiring goals, our budget, all the stuff, right? We do the exact same thing every year.
Yeah.
But how many companies actually go back and look at, well, what information did we bring to the table the last 3 cycles we did this? What were the outcomes that were driven?
Right. Exactly.
Analyzing why did this outcome happen versus the one we planned, and then feeding all of that into the decision cycle for this cycle. They don't do that. I've never seen it done.
That's where a lot of systems like EOS come into play that are really helpful for that. Yeah.
EOS is great at helping you know what you've got to do. But like any framework or methodology, you got to have rigor and accountability. You got to do it.
Right.
You got to do the stuff. And
well, you can't sandbag it, right? Like, oh, well, we did okay. Yeah.
Bro, I just can't. I had a client earlier last year where they were a dedicated EOS shop, right? And I was involved in all of the weekly meetings and whatnot, and the rocks and the this and the that and all that. It was a massive waste of time because we kept talking about the same stuff every week.
They never solved root problems.
Nothing was getting solved.
Yeah.
And I was like, all this does is and they used to do it on Mondays. It's like, this is just a big bummer for everybody when we come to this meeting, because we're reminded every week how much we suck. Why are we doing this?
Right? Sounds like we have some wrong people.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even that. It was just that with so many systems, processes, methodologies, which is why I didn't want this book or the course that goes along with it to be that, right? I didn't want it to be just like another, framework, right?
Yeah.
Those frameworks are only good if you follow. It's like IKEA furniture, right?
Follow the instructions.
You have to follow the instructions. And if you skip a step, you're not going to end up with a bed frame.
Right.
You're going to end up with an art project.
I did one piece of it and I just don't understand why I was successful. So everything is terrible, Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about, so we learned a little bit about executive debt, but explain a little bit about more of this course, tell the audience, where we can get the book and more about the course, and the results that might come from that.
So the book's been out for a little over a year now, and everybody that's read the book and that I've had conversations with about the book, they all say the same thing. It's like, oh my God, you nailed it. I got a million examples of everything you write about in this book. So I know I'm on the right track here with this stuff. So what I wanted to do is, I wanted to take the book, because the book is good at describing, right, what executive debt looks like. It helps you identify it, helps you maybe even quantify it a little bit, but it doesn't talk a lot about how you fix it, right?
Got it.
That's what the course does. The course, when you complete the course, you literally have a 90-day executive debt mitigation plan that you're ready to go execute with your team on one area of executive debt. It's not going to help you fix all of it, but it's going to give you what you need, which is, I know how I can detect it. I can quantify the cost of it. I can prioritize what needs to get done. And then I can actually put the plan in place to go fix it. And if you do it on the first one, then you just move down the priority list. You do it on the second one, the third one with that. Or if you're impatient like me and you realize, because we have an assessment that you take first and then you do the course and then you get your plan. And then, if you get done with your assessment and you're like, oh my God, there's no way we're going to be able to mop all this up. That's fine. Call me. We can help fix it for you.
I see.
Now,
let's talk about the training. Like, you do the assessment, right?
Yeah.
So you self-assess yourself. And then the training, is it self-guided? Is it course? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's an online course. It's hosted on Teachable. You can get through it through our website, or you can go to executivedebt.com. You can go to aspire6.com and find it. The course is it's self-guided. So it's a, start here, end here. And you have to progress through each step, and, there's knowledge checks and all of that. But the real piece is the workbook. All right. There's like a 60-page workbook that comes with it. And throughout the workbook, you're working through all of the you're learning how to identify, how to quantify the impact, how to figure out who's contributing to it. So you go through a lot of real deep analysis. It's all the same stuff that we would do if we came into your organization. You're just doing it from an executive level, right? You're kind of at a microscopic level. But by the end, what you do is you understand the concepts now in a way that I think you wouldn't by just reading the book.
I see.
And you've now developed a rhythm, an operating rhythm, or a mechanism whereby I can look at something and question, is that executive debt? What category is it? How much is it costing me, and what do we need to do to fix it, and who needs to be involved in the fix, right? And how do I
Love it.
communicate the fix? So that by the end, I don't want to say you're an expert in executive debt, but you're definitely much better situated as a leader to guard against it going forward, right? Because once
Love
your
it.
awareness is raised on something, it's kind of like when I learned that eating sugar contributes to not only diabetes and being fat, but it also is a major contributor to Alzheimer's. I was like,
Right.
I'm done with sugar, right? Nobody needed to convince me, right?
Right.
And that's the way this executive debt topic lands with folks. It's like, I know all this stuff is going on. Can you tell me why?
Right.
And more
Well, that's
importantly,
the
tell me
best
how to
part,
fix it.
right? Like to be made aware and read it and be like, yeah, I get it, Monty, but like, how do I fix it? I think it's
Well,
really great that you've created a way to solve the
absolutely.
problem and work through it systematically.
That was a reaction I got from one very senior leader. He said to me, he goes, "Man, I'm glad I read this book." He goes, "But now I'm just pissed off." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I know how damaged we are, and I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Oh." I'm like, "Man, I better write another book." And then I was like, "Wait a minute, no, I don't want to do that again."
Got to get the course going.
Yeah.
Oh, well, excellent job, Monty. We appreciate you. And we appreciate the time that you've been with us today. I mean, wow, everybody. Well, there you have it. Executive Debt Exposed. Go check it out online, right? You find leadership blind spots illuminated and hopefully a few, moments along the way that you learned a few things today. Monty, thank you for reminding us that real revenue growth isn't about squeezing harder. It's about leading better. Healthy teams, clear strategy, and integrity still wins even when the numbers are watching, right? And to listeners, if this episode made you a little more uncomfortable, good. Growth usually starts there. Take what you heard today, look honestly at your leadership team, and ask yourself, what debt or am I carrying that team quietly, along the way, right? Monty and his team can help. And Monty, as a servant leader, revenue architect, and the guy brave enough to call executive debt what it is, thank you for being part of the Servant Leadership Library. And as always, lead well, serve first, and we'll see you in the next chapter.